The President and the Shah met for about an hour this morning. The President said the Shah's visit was encouraging and had strengthened the strong ties of friendship between the two countries.
Despite the temporary imposition of martial law, the Shah's new government appears determined to press ahead with liberal reform. It is from the mosques that opposition to the Shah is being led by puritanical Shiite Muslims. The religious zealots want to return to the Constitution of 1906, which would ensure all legislation conforms with Islamic law.
Almost 40,000 refinery workers went on strike today, virtually cutting off Iran's petroleum exports.
University students demonstrating in Tehran, shouting death to the Shah, pledge allegiance to the Islamic movement of the Ayatollahs.
News there would be some kind of announcement about a new government came after yet another day of running confrontations in the center of Tehran. The army kept moving today, trying to head off the demonstrations, keep them where possible from growing in size. This dogged military resistance to the anti-Shah disturbances, part of an effort to buy the Shah as much time as possible in which to create a political solution. Demonstrations like these today in Tehran are a daily occurrence in towns throughout the country now, and one sign of the fact there is nothing less than a kind of revolution being attempted here, trying to change the form of Iran's government, and unlikely to settle easily for any solution which still keeps the Shah on his throne.
People poured into the streets of Tehran and other cities, chanting death to the Shah and death to America. Middle-class Iranians, leftist university students, and Islamist supporters of the Ayatollah Khomeini united to demand the overthrow of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. From October of 1977 to February of 1979, the people of Iran called for the end of the monarchy. Now, nearly 40 years later, people in Iran regret ever starting a revolution because of the viciousness of the new government and the poverty that the people of Iran fell into. Instead of spending all their oil revenues on the country and people, instead, the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran spends millions of the revenue from the oil production to arming terrorist groups, notably the Hezbollah. And the world also regrets allowing such government ever to come to power, because of all the consequences that followed. But before we begin talking about what exactly the Iranian Revolution was, let's go over a brief history of both people involved in the revolution. The Shah, or King of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and the ruthless new ruler who took his place in 1979 and caused a havoc not only in the Middle East, but also throughout the world. His name was Ayatollah Khomeini. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was born on October the 27th of 1919. His father, who was then an officer in the Persian Cossack regiment, became the Shah, or King of Iran, as Reza Shah Pahlavi in 1926. Mohammad Reza was proclaimed crown prince at the age of 6. From this time on, he was carefully educated for his future role as a King of Iran by his father. In 1931, he was sent to Switzerland to attend Le Rosey School for Boys. He was a good student, but made few friends because as a prince, he was not permitted to leave the school grounds. After returning to Iran in 1936, he entered a Tehran military school, graduating in 1938. In 1939, he married Princess Fawzia of Egypt. He developed a love for sports, enjoying soccer and skiing, and he later became a licensed pilot. In the fall of 1941, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's father was forced to step down from the throne by British and Russian forces who had taken over the country after a short struggle. On September the 27th of 1941, he replaced his father as Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. This was a confusing and dangerous time for Iran. Not only was World War II being fought, but Iran was squeezed between bitter enemies, Russia and Britain. In addition, the vast resources of oil in Iran were eagerly sought by the Russians, the Americans, and the British. Pressure on Iran from the Soviet Union came from more than one side. The young king was caught in a struggle between the pro-Soviet Tudeh party, which wanted social revolution without the king, and the pro-British National Will Party, which wanted the king but no social change. The Shah himself was not satisfied with either idea. After World War II, the Soviet Union refused to remove its forces from Iran as it had promised. Instead, the Soviet forces stayed to help the branch of the Persian Communist Party set up a separate government in the northwest province of Azerbaijan. Iran brought this issue to the United Nations. After much discussion, the Soviet Union left Azerbaijan in May of 1946, and the Shah became a very popular man. Iran's problems were not over. The oil question had not been solved. The new National Front Party, formed under the leadership of Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh, stated that since Iran had refused to give oil rights to the Soviet Union, it should take them away from the British. The country was plunged into a crisis, and by 1953, communications broke down between the Shah and Prime Minister Mossadegh, and also among the Prime Minister's cabinet and the Parliament. The crisis in which the Tudeh party was gaining the upper hand forced the Shah and Soraya, his second wife, to leave the country. 9 days later, with United States aid, Mossadegh was overthrown and the Shah returned to power. The Shah returned with a new resolve to do things his way. He started what later was called the White Revolution. After distributing the land among the peasants, he put forests and water under the control of the government, establishing profit-sharing plans for workers, giving more freedom to ladies, and establishing civil service programs. New industries were created, and Iran soon became one of the most stable countries in the Middle East. On October the 27th of 1967, his 48th birthday, and after 26 years as a king, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was crowned as His Imperial Majesty Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, King of Kings of Iran. What made this crowning unique in Persian history was that his third wife, Farah, was crowned as Empress, the first since the coming of Islam in the 7th century. Their 6-year-old son Reza was declared Crown Prince. During the 1970s, oil-rich countries such as Iran exercised much world power. It was also the strongest military country in the Middle East. The people were living to their absolute best, and many regarded Iran as a Middle East America, due to the modernization that at the time very few Middle Eastern countries possessed. It was also said at the time that Iran would be amongst the top 5 most prosperous countries due to the excellent leadership of the Shah. Ladies were living in absolute freedom without the forced hijab. Any lady who desired could either wear the hijab or not. There were bars and casinos and also mosques at the same time, and people could practice any religion of their choice. However, for whatever reason, people thought that the Shah was not good enough for them and decided to start a meaningless revolution to overthrow him. The revolution was led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. The Ayatollah led the revolution in 1979, forcing the Shah and his family into exile. And unfortunately, His Majesty King of Kings Mohammad Reza Pahlavi died in Cairo, Egypt on July the 27th of 1980. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini was born on September the 24th of 1902, according to most sources. The title Ayatollah, which means the sign of God, reflected his scholarly religious standing in the Shia Islamic tradition. His first name Ruhollah, which means the Spirit of God, is a common name in spite of its religious meaning, and his last name is taken from his birthplace, the town of Khomein, which is about 200 miles south of Tehran, Iran's capital city. His father, Mustafa Mousavi, was a chief cleric of the town and was murdered only 5 months after the birth of Khomeini. The child was raised by his mom and aunt, both of whom died when Khomeini was about 15 years old. Khomeini's life after childhood went through 3 different phases. The first phase, which was from 1908 to 1962, was marked mainly by training, teaching, and writing in the field of Islamic studies. At the age of 6, he began to study the Quran, Islam's holy book, and also elementary Persian, an ancient language of Iran. Later, he completed his studies in Islamic law, ethics, and spiritual philosophy under the supervision of Ayatollah Abdul Karim Yazdi in Qom, where he also got married and had 2 sons and 3 daughters. Although during his scholarly phase of his life, Khomeini was not politically active, the nature of his studies, teachings, and writings revealed that he firmly believed in political activism by clerics, who are the religious leaders. The second phase of Khomeini's life, from 1962 to 1979, was marked by political activism, which was greatly influenced by his strict religious interpretation of Shia Islam. He practically launched his fight against the Shah's regime in 1962, which led to the eruption of a religious and political rebellion on June the 5th of 1963. This date is regarded by the revolutionists as a turning point in the history of the Islamic movement in Iran, mainly because, due to the uprising, Khomeini was exiled in 1964, first to Iraq, then to France. Khomeini's religious and political ideas became more extreme, and his entry into active political opposition reflected a combination of events in his life. First, the deaths of the 2 leading Iranian religious leaders left leadership open to Khomeini. Second, although ever since the rise of Reza Shah Pahlavi, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's father, to power in the 1920s, the clerical class had been on the defensive because of his movements away from certain religious policies. And third, the Shah's granting of diplomatic privileges to the American military personnel in 1964 was somehow viewed as insulting to the Iranian sense of national independence. The third phase of Khomeini's life began with his return to Iran from exile on February the 1st of 1979, after His Majesty Mohammad Reza Pahlavi had been forced to step down 2 weeks earlier. On February 11th, revolutionary forces loyal to Khomeini seized power in Iran, and Khomeini emerged as the founder and the supreme leader of the now Islamic Republic of Iran. Khomeini died on June the 3rd of 1989, but before his death, he designated President Ali Khamenei to succeed him, who is now the current supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran. On December 11th of 1978, a huge demonstration in Tehran and other parts of Iran officially called for Khomeini to lead Iran in the revolution and the overthrow of the Shah. The Shah made last-minute efforts to form a new democratic government and dismantled Sabak in the hope of restoring his people's faith in him. The crowds, however, ignored these efforts and called for Khomeini's return from exile. Admitting defeat, His Majesty Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, accompanied by Empress Farah Diba, left Iran forever on January 16th of 1979. Left to hold the crumbling fort, the Shah's last Prime Minister, Shapur Bakhtiar, tried to stop Khomeini's return by closing the main airport, but to no avail. Bakhtiar could not keep control of the demonstrators or keep their leader away. Khomeini left France on a specially chartered flight and unfortunately landed in Tehran on February the 1st of 1979 to formally lead the revolution. With the final defeat by armed opposition groups of the Shah's army, the Imperial Guard, a coalition of Khomeini and the other leaders of the opposition came to power on February 11th, 1979, and Iran was now officially a republic for the first time in 2.5 millennia, a mistake which people to this day still regret.